If the president had been obstinate and let this go over the cliff, the people that we claim to be most concerned about would have been in a real disaster. I don't think a lot of people understand that if we allowed the country to go into default, the people at the bottom of the economic ladder would have been in a catastrophic place.
Which is racist. Like everybody in this country is racist. That's the Reverend Al Sharpton, Chief Economic Advisor to the Democratic Party and MSDNC. That was this morning on Morning Joke, where a group of tragically mentally ill people gather to lie to dozens of Americans across this great land of ours every day. Most of them reside on the Upper West Side of Manhattan and write glowingly about the lies they're told. Well, happy hump day to you. It is mailbag day. It is mailbag day because it's hump day, it's Wednesday, and we have mailbag questions in front of me that I intend to get to. I want to get to the FBI, the crooked, sleazy criminal enterprise known as the FBI, and they have stiff-armed Congress again and the Constitution of the United States of America, and risk, without a care in the world, being held in contempt of Congress, but then an Obama-appointed judge will sweep it under the rug and it'll be no problem. And Christopher Wray, the FBI director, will just go get lunch at Charlie Palmer's Steakhouse, which is the $1 million steakhouse that is beneath Joe Biden's old think tank where he had all the classified documents. Washington, it's a crazy little town. Honestly, it's like Mayberry on some very heavy hallucinogenic drugs. Everybody knows each other, and not in a good way. Not in a good way. So we've got the debt ceiling thing that I want to get into, in addition to the FBI story. Let me get to the debt ceiling. We've got a bunch of audio for you on this, members of Congress, and of course the Reverend Al Sharpton, who isn't he a Nobel laureate in economics or something like that? Maybe that was Tawana Brawley. Hard to say. Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida says passing a debt deal without Republican majority would, quote, likely trigger an immediate motion, end quote, to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican Florida, said on Tuesday that passing a debt deal without a Republican majority in the House would trigger an immediate motion to oust Speaker Kevin McCarthy. If a majority of Republicans, he said, are against a piece of legislation and you use Democrats to pass it, that would immediately be a black letter violation of the deal we had with McCarthy to allow his assent to the speakership, and it would likely trigger an immediate motion to vacate. To vacate. This is Washington talk. A lot of people speak in Washingtonese around here. I think Speaker McCarthy knows that, he said, I think Speaker McCarthy knows that. That's why he's working hard to make sure he gets, 120, 150, 160 votes. And that's why those of us who are not supportive of the bill are trying to point out that many of the changes are cosmetic in nature. Cosmetic in nature. Gaetz is one of at least 25 House Republicans out of 222 members of the Republican Conference who have said they will not vote for the deal struck by McCarthy and President Biden to raise the debt ceiling. Boy, does it raise the debt ceiling. However, the Florida Republican said Friday, before an agreement had been reached, that he saw no serious threat to McCarthy's speakership. That was then, this is now, and predicted a deal would pass with about 80 to 100 Democrat votes and between 140 to 160 Republican votes. Literally, nobody except the press is talking about removing McCarthy right now. That was a week ago. This is the Hill typing this up on behalf of their party, the Democrat Party. Matt Gaetz was among a group of 20 hardline conservatives who held up McCarthy's speakership election in January, ultimately securing an agreement to lower the threshold to force a vote to ousting the Speaker to just one member. So they changed the rules for ousting the Speaker as an agreement, part of the agreement to vote for McCarthy to become Speaker. Now let's get to some audio because the Washington Post is very excited about this because they're on the side of Joe Biden and the Democrat Party in the White House. Deal on debt limit clears first hurdle is the headline front page above the fold today in the Washington Post. Rules panel advances bill while McCarthy works to tamp down opposition. See, this is a bill. How many Democrats in the House support this bill? And Joe Biden supports this bill. And the Lizard King, Chuck Schumer, in the Senate supports this bill. These are not good signs for America or anything else. And honestly, before we go, I want to play the Reverend Al Sharpton thing again because this was this morning. The Reverend Al not the Reverend Al Sharpton. Congressman James Clyburn, who says that we don't need a debt limit at all. We just need to have unlimited spending forever and ever in Washington.
I'm not a proponent of having a debt limit. I don't think we ought to have that at all. So I don't know why we have this debt limit. I wish we'd just get this thing behind us, pass this bill tonight, and let's next week start working on getting rid of the debt limit altogether.
That's their plan, to get rid of the debt limit altogether. Right now, the national debt is almost $32 trillion, $31.8 trillion as of yesterday. Could be $31.9 trillion. By now, that's a difference of $100 billion. And now they're talking about adding at least $4 trillion to the national debt to make it about $36 trillion. Again, a trillion seconds, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. A trillion seconds is more than 31,700 years. Let me say that again. A trillion seconds is more than 31,700 years. Okay? 1,000 years is a millennium, and we're talking about 31,000 for a trillion seconds. So right now, if we were to start paying off our national debt at $1 a second, $1 per second, it would take us more than 900,000 years to pay it off. Jesus Christ was on earth 2,000 years ago-ish, and now it would take us more than 900,000 years to pay off the national debt. When we add another $4 trillion, that means our national debt will be about $36 trillion, and it would take us more than 1,100,000 years to pay off our national debt if we were paying it off at $1 a second, and we are not paying it off. And James Clyburn now just he doesn't understand anything, math, finance, economics. He understands nothing. Seems like a good idea. Just give me an open-ended piggy bank to go forever and ever until I die, and then screw everybody else is their take. That's your Democrat Party. Just amazing stuff. Now we had yesterday a soundbite from a Republican member of Congress. And I just want to refresh your memory on this. This is Congressman Ralph Norman. Yesterday, and I played this soundbite for you yesterday, about what we're talking about in this big, responsible harnessing of our financial irresponsibility in Washington. And Ralph Norman is not in favor of this dumb bill.
The biggest single thing that is so wrong about this, the $1.5 trillion that we've had in there as a limit, is basically taken off. And it's he could spend $4 trillion, he can spend $10 trillion, and he pushed it until after the election.
Could be 10 trillion. Could be 10 trillion. Because that what is these numbers don't really mean anything, do they? It's just numbers on a page, and we'll pretend that they don't mean anything. Congressman Byron Donalds, a Republican from the state of Florida, who I believe, and I said this the moment he appeared in Washington, I think is rising in American politics. Smart guy, good guy. I think he's great. He makes a point very well, which almost no Republicans do. And he came out yesterday with a group of Republican House members in front of the Capitol building, the House of Representatives, and spoke to the news media about what this deal is really about. And here's Congressman Byron Donalds.
First things first, to the American people, Washington is doing it again. While you were celebrating Memorial Day, all of our men and women who gave their lives for this great nation, and you were spending time with your family and your friends, this town was cutting another crap deal that's going to put you more in debt with no real changes whatsoever. So the American people need to understand full and well, do not listen to the talking points. Do not listen to the cool phrases that are being thrown out in commercials on CNN or Fox or MSNBC, because Washington is lying again. This bill has no cap in raising the debt, just a date in the future. We have no idea what that number is going to look like. Some people are saying $4 trillion, some people are saying $3.5 trillion. This bill in year one might cut $12 billion if you just want to be generous.
$12 billion.
So who here thinks it's cool to cut $12 billion in exchange for $4 trillion? I don't think that's cool at all. This bill actually keeps the Biden baseline intact for the federal agencies. The Republicans in Congress have been saying for months that we need to get back to pre-COVID spending levels. This bill canonizes post-COVID spending levels brought to us by Joe Biden and the Democrats. This bill keeps all of Joe Biden's policy, all of Joe Biden's spending intact. This bill does nothing for the Green New Deal subsidies that are going to cripple our electric grid. So when Americans are trying to figure out that they went and bought this electric car that they were subsidized to buy, but when they plug it in, there's not enough electricity on the grid, that is because Washington subsidized all these Green New Deal projects and nobody stood up to it except for people standing behind me right now.
Is that a problem? Is that going to be a problem of some kind? Everything is broken. We're saving $12 billion. And we're spending $4 trillion to save. And, they say, well, we'll save $150 billion while adding another $4 trillion. And again, it may be a lot more than $4 trillion. It may be an open-ended number. Congressman Norman saying it could be $10 trillion. And Congressman Clyburn, who's in the leadership in the Democrat Party, says, let's do away with the debt limit altogether. Let's just break the back of capitalism worldwide, and then, the socialists, utopianists will take over, and the hobnailed boot of the state will be on your neck for the rest of humankind, because the United States of America will be over. This is part of it was the Soviet Union's plan, it's Communist China's plan, to break the bank. The bank is the United States of America. It's the Cloward and Piven strategy, a couple of radical left-wing extremist professors who decades ago came up with their strategy, the Cloward and Piven strategy, which was to overload the American capitalist system to the point where it would break and it would never recover. And then capitalism worldwide would collapse. And what would be there to replace, to catch capitalism as it collapses? Well, worldwide socialism. That's the thing. Congressman Byron Donalds.
To my Republican colleagues, do not vote for this bill. I'm telling you right now, your voters back home are going to look at you and say, why did you vote for a bill that keeps all of Joe Biden's policy in place and all you did was raise the debt ceiling? They're going to tell you, why did you not stand up and demand that they go back to the table and renegotiate this deal? These negotiations happened. Listen, in negotiations, you go through it, you figure out what comes out the other side. But now it's time for the Republican members of Congress to weigh in on these negotiations.
I think that's a good idea. And also, there is some little bit of movement. I think it was Bernard Carrick, one of the people on Twitter this morning, saying that Byron Donalds should replace Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. And I've got to say, here's a guy who's stepping up and who can make a case. He speaks up, and he speaks well, and Kevin McCarthy, of course, does not. And, and he sounds like he's up for the fight, which is, of course, what we need in the United States of America on Capitol Hill in the Republican Party. And it's what we don't have, isn't it? And that's why President Trump won the presidency in 2016, because he stepped up and he was up for the fight. And he wasn't going to stand there and take it and roll over, as so many of them do. You know that you can purify the air in your home and get healthy, clean, fresh-smelling air, eliminate odors, kill mold, mildew, bacteria, and viruses. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier uses Oxy technology. Oxy technology naturally sends out O3 molecules into the air, and they seek out odors and air pollutants in your home and destroy them. Doesn't mask or cover up bad odors and pollutants like a spray can. It eliminates them. It's called the Thunderstorm because it purifies the air in your home and provides you with pure, fresh air, just like after a thunderstorm. And right now, you can save $200 American on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. You're going to get 3 units for under $200. That's a fraction of the cost compared to other air purifiers that can go for more than $600 each. You can put one in your basement, your bedroom, your family room, any place that you like to breathe clean, fresh air. You can hold one in your hand. They're only this big. They're not big pieces of furniture. With this special offer, you're getting 3 units for under $200. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com. Put in the discount code Chris. That's my first name. That's me. And save $200. Thank me later. That's EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code is Chris, and shipping is free. Yes, sir. Yeah, Byron Donalds. And I've got a lot more because some Republicans are standing up to this and saying, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by this. While James Clyburn is saying, let's just pretend we don't have a debt limit at all. Let's just break the bank. Tell with the kids and the grandkids and capitalism and human liberty and freedom. Let's just crush it all. James Clyburn, Democrat leadership. Hey, Chris here with some exciting news. Now you can listen to me live on the WMAL app. Doesn't matter if you're in your car, in the office, on the go. The WMAL app delivers crystal clear around-the-clock news coverage anywhere with cell service or Wi-Fi. So don't miss a second of your favorite shows. Download the WMAL app today on the Apple App Store or at Google Play Store. All right, let's go back to the telephones. I've got a lot more for you on this debt limit thing and the crooked FBI and why the FBI director should be in jail, but why the Obama judges won't let that happen. Let's go to Jay calling from Chicago, Illinois, listening on the great WLS. Jay, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, I was the first call you ever had here from WLS, if you'll remember, and I told you I was glad you moved out of town because now I'm the most sarcastic person in the state of Illinois and in the city of Chicago. That was me. Well, I'm back, but I just want to let you know, I think James Clyburn is the greatest idiot genius in the history of idiot geniuses. Think about what the man said, and you can actually play the clip if you want. He said, let's sign this thing, and then next week, let's immediately work on getting rid of this debt ceiling. I got a simple plan for you, James Clyburn. Here's how you do it. You lower the debt. Then you're never anywhere near that flipping ceiling you're talking about.
Yeah, well, nobody in Washington is talking about paying off the debt or lowering the debt. Nobody, but nobody. It's embarrassing. Also, I'm going to be in Chicago for an event on June 8th. Go to the WLS website and get your tickets. Yeah, sure. Remember when Steve Bannon was found to be in contempt of Congress, and he was sentenced to jail time, 4 months in jail, by an Obama judge who I assume is as corrupt as the day is long. What other conclusion could you come to? And the news media never mentions that he's an Obama appointee when he's lynching members of the Trump administration in court. But never mind that. Now the FBI director may be facing contempt of Congress charges, and I promise you nothing will happen to him that will be consequence-free, because we're living in a very corrupt time in the United States of America. I'm living in a very, very corrupt city. It's called Washington, D.C. And now they're talking about the debt ceiling. James Clyburn wants to just do away with the debt limit altogether. That way they can, just roll out the trillions trillion here, a trillion there. Pretty soon we're talking about real money, to paraphrase Everett Dirksen from long ago, who said a billion here, a billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money, and everybody laughed. Everybody laughed out loud. Now we're talking trillions, and James Clyburn and the Democrats are like, screw it, capitalism sucks. We're going to wreck it. We're going to destroy this place. And as for the kids, well, you're on your own, honestly. Before we get back to the audio and we've got Republicans who are standing up against this, some, and I will share with you their views. Let's go to Jay calling from Cape Coral, Florida. Jay, you're on that. That's 2 J's in a row. Jay, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Uh-oh. Where's Jay?
She's on the phone with him.
Uh-oh. On the phone with Jay. Jay from Cape Coral, Florida. On with Jasmine right now. Got some technical difficulties going on. All right, let's get back to the audio then, because Jay's been hanging in there for nearly an hour and a half. Wanted to go to Jay, get him in. He's got a word for politicians and all that stuff. But let's go to the audio. Let's go to Congressman Thomas Massey. Congressman Thomas Massey, who's describing the way this deal was cut. You get a Democrat, you get a Republican, just one from each party, and they go into a back room. You know, it used to be smoke-filled, but now it's smoke-free, going into a smoke-free room to hash this out. And Congressman Massey said, no, it's supposed to be debated on the floor of the House of Representatives openly. This is the people's house. The people are supposed to be represented. And Congressman Thomas Massey said that's not what happened.
Sending one person to go into a room with another person and no cameras there, and then they come out and say up or down, take it or leave it. That is not a good process.
That is not a good process. Congressman Ralph Norman, and I played audio of him yesterday, and Congressman Ralph Norman has been stepping up, I've got to say.
This bill is smoke and mirrors. Never are we talking about the interest on the existing debt. Forget everything else. $32 trillion, $1 trillion is $30 billion.
The interest on $1 trillion is $30 billion a year. So multiply that by 32 and then multiply it by 36. That's just the interest on the debt that these criminals on Capitol Hill have been racking up for decades now, acting like there's nothing to see here. And like, well, just pay no attention. And he said, smoke and mirrors, it's a deception, a distraction. James Clyburn says, let's just do away with the debt ceiling altogether. Man, oh man. Now, Congressman Steve Scalise, who I like and I respect, is in favor of this bill. He was shot, you may remember, and nearly murdered, assassinated by a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer by the name of James Hodgkinson, who was there to kill Senator Rand Paul and to kill Ron DeSantis, was on the baseball field. He was a member of the House of Representatives at the time. And the Bernie Sanders volunteer, it was a suicide attack. He was shot and killed by the police on the spot, not before he shot Congressman Steve Scalise and I believe 4 other people. But that story went away in a couple of days because it was a Bernie Sanders volunteer, another Democrat, would-be mass political assassin, but pay no attention. Congressman Steve Scalise, he likes the bill. He thinks, hey, we got some stuff out of it.
This is just the first step. We've been waiting for years to get a chance to finally turn the direction of this country around, and that change starts with this bill.
It's a real tiny baby step because we're adding at least $4 trillion more rather than reducing. Now, a baby step would be reducing the national debt by $100 billion this year, not increasing it by $4 trillion. That's not a baby step. That's a giant leap in the wrong direction. I've just got to say, because that's the thing. Cringe Jean-Pierre. She is the funny-looking White House spokesmodel, and she was asked yesterday about the debt. I believe it was Peter Doocy at the Fox News Channel, because got James Rosen at Newsmax and Peter Doocy at Fox, and that's it. The rest of them are cardboard cutouts that the Democrat Party props up in the chairs. And hey, what has the President of the United States been doing?
The president has been engaging with members of Congress throughout this process. That includes more than 100 one-on-one calls with members of Congress.
Oh, no, 101 phone calls with members of Congress? How many of them were Republicans? How many of them were Democrats? Honestly, Congressman Chip Roy has been, he showed up, and he's not putting up with this stuff either. Oh, this is great. It's a baby step. No, we're adding $4 trillion to a nearly $32 trillion national debt. That's not a baby anything. That's a huge bite, a giant plate full of other people's cash that you guys are going to bankrupt us with.
We have to regroup. Leadership needs to sit down with us and bring us all back down to the table so that we don't do exactly what they just did this weekend.
Which is go behind closed doors, cobble together a fake deal that the Democrats are going to vote for. And, you gotta stand your ground at some point. You got to stand and fight. You got to say, 32 trillion is enough. It's like 3 generations of idiots is enough. And we've got more than 3 generations of idiots in Congress that have inflated our national debt to the point, what's our economy is, about $25 trillion a year. And we exceeded that, the debt to GDP ratio is completely out of whack, according to every economist, until we exceeded our GDP. Then they started changing the rules, of course, just like they say, well, a recession is no longer 2 consecutive fiscal quarters, economic quarters of negative growth, because the Democrats are in charge. So that's no longer a recession. That's the way a recession had been defined forever and ever, until Biden came along. And then the media and the Democrats, but I repeat myself, say, no, that's no longer the definition of a recession. Now we're just going to change the meaning of the word, like the meaning of the word boy and girl and man and woman. Right? And what else? Kink. Kink. We'll change the meaning of the word kink. Congressman Chip Roy.
Don't tell me you're going to put me over a barrel for $4 trillion because you refuse to do your job.
Now, Senator Rand Paul, who is a medical doctor, and he was on the baseball field when the Bernie Sanders volunteers showed up to murder everybody in a mass political assassination suicide attack, which was quickly forgotten. And he's not a huge fan of what's happening here in Washington either.
I don't think the Biden-McCarthy plan is significant reform, but that's in the eyes of the beholder. I think conservatives across the country deserve an alternative, so I'll present an alternative in the Senate.
I don't think it is in the eye of the beholder, actually. I think it's clearly and obviously not a good deal. When you're adding $4 trillion to the national debt, you're going to have practically as many Democrats in the House voting for it as you will have Republicans. And this is nothing resembling fiscal responsibility or adult behavior. And James Clyburn wants to do away with a debt ceiling, a debt limit of any kind, so they would have unlimited debt going forward. Can you imagine if they did away? This is what, when we have a theoretical debt ceiling, some restraint, which is largely fictional, but at least there's the fig leaf, and James Clyburn and the Democrats will go along immediately. We'll just say, well, let's do away with a debt limit. Why do we even have a debt limit? This is completely insane. Just give me a credit card with $500 trillion of credit, and I'll just go on a crack binge to beat the band. Right? Man, oh man. All right, let's go to we went to Jay and he wasn't there. Let's go back. Let's go to Jay from Cape Coral, Florida. Jay, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, how's it going today, my man?
Very well, Jay. Thank you very much.
Anyway, the last time I was on hold, I made the mistake and did a gurgle at the same time, and I couldn't get back to my phone. But anyway, they were talking about how people need to take a more active role in children. So that got me thinking. So I'm out and about, and I see some 12, 14, 15-year-old kid acting up and being disrespectful. Do I have the right to go over and smack him? Because we're supposed, you know what I mean? Probably not.
Yeah, and, definitely not, because that would be assault.
Well, I understand that, but I don't like salt. I just like pepper. But that being said, I really don't understand that. The other thing that I wanted to say is 98.6 is a good thing. It's our temperature. It's also the amount of politicians that are completely worthless. And everything that they talk about, 98.6% of it can be responded to with one word. What? That's it.
What's the one word?
What?
What? Question mark?
Even in Spanish. Hey, and somebody says, men can get pregnant. What? That's it.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, men can get pregnant because a woman can say that she's a man and then be impregnated, and then the Democrats will tell you men are having babies.
Right. My only point on that is, and then I'll go, is that 90% of the stuff that they talk about, you can just answer what instead of saying, what are you talking about? You can just shorten it up. What? That's it.
It's definitely more concise, and it puts it in question form. And, of course, we know that they can't answer these questions.
Right. Can I say one more thing? It's sad that people won't get a chance to visit the Capitol and see how it was. I was there with my parents, and I think it was the year that we got the pandas from China, and we were wandering around. I don't know if you'll understand this reference. We went to some place named Emerson's. My mother got grogged, but I was only 12, so I did not. And it was just beautiful walking around D.C. I took a picture of the Declaration of Independence. I couldn't have been 5 feet away from it. It was just laying right out there in that little, back in the 70s, how they had it laid out.
Sure.
And people will never get a chance to see how cool the Capitol is. And that's sad.
Well, the Democrats are turning every place into a work-free drug place and, free crime zones. They're anti-police. They're pro-crime, pro-criminal. Crime is skyrocketing here and across the country because the Democrat Party is anti-police and pro-crime, and they've secured so much power. And you're right. And it's not, you don't have to go back that far. You can go back 5 years, and certainly to pre-Obama in Washington, D.C., and it was a very, very different city, Washington, D.C. The Democrats are good at destroying because they're the left, Jay. They're not liberals. They're the left, and they're great at destroying things. Now James Clyburn said, we'll just do away with the debt ceiling, so let's destroy the American economy next, and that means, the capitalist economies around the world fall like dominoes when the U.S. economy goes. This has been a plot that was hatched in the Soviet Union decades ago, and it continues to live on with the Democrat Party, no doubt about it. Jay, thank you for the call. And we've got to fight back and take it back. And with that, let's go to Joe calling from Alexandria, Virginia. Joe, I don't have a ton of time because the clock is ticking, but I saw you on the big board. Wanted to get to you, Joe.
Chris, thank you so much. I'm a huge fan, but I'm a little surprised I have to make this call. I don't know why you and others are going after the only guys in town who are trying to challenge this president, who's not real well sold on capitalism last time I checked, on spending. We're up against a Democrat Senate, a Democrat head of the executive branch, the left, and they're not Democrats, they're really the left.
Yep.
We're going up against the deep state. We're going up against the media. We're going up against big tech. And it ain't easy to try to cut spending in the nation's capital. But Speaker McCarthy is trying. And he's involved, politically speaking, in a zero-sum game, given that we're so close to the time at which we might default. And half of the MO of this executive branch in the negotiations, I think, has just been to F up the House Republicans and divide them up, so that in the future, negotiations on other issues might be less difficult.
Yeah.
So McCarthy's up against a great deal. So I think people who profess to be concerned about spending try to thoughtfully get behind the McCarthy proposal, no matter how short of perfect it is.
Well, listen, I appreciate your perspective. I definitely do, and your point of view. That's how I saw you on the board. I wanted to put you on the radio to say what you want to say. But I've got to say, come out and make the argument. Come out and make the case like Byron Donalds did yesterday. Come out and make a cogent, intelligent case that this is, and if you're going to do it and say we're going to add $4 trillion to the national debt, in the next year and a half to 2 years, and some are saying it may be as much as $10 trillion, then, do it reluctantly. Don't do it with a smile on your face. Do it pounding the table and demand real change. If you're going to eat it on this one, and we're all going to eat it on this one, don't tell me that it's apple pie when it's a cow pie, because, this is no great shakes. And if it's baby steps and this is step one, okay, come out and make the case. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? Where is Ronald Reagan when you need him? Where is somebody that can make a cogent, intelligent case to the American people and start winning the argument? So that's what I got to say, Joe. And I appreciate your perspective. I absolutely do. But make the case. And this is why I didn't want Kevin McCarthy as Speaker in the first place, because he can't make a case to save his life. He doesn't make an articulate point. He doesn't make cogent arguments. He's not well spoken. And he sits there and smiles and gets rolled over once again. And that, I think, is what's happening now, Joe. So I'm gonna have to say what I think, right? But thank you, Joe. Honestly, I appreciate it. Now, it's official. Reports say that the banking collapse of 2023 is actually more devastating than the banking collapse of 2008. Remember that one? Right now, a series of global financial dominoes are falling, and it's definitely not over yet. So don't wait for that email to show up saying, sorry, your account has been frozen. We must take action now to protect what we've worked so hard to build over the years. It's time to call my friends at American Alternative Assets and request your free wealth protection guide. So call them today at 888-4-GOLD-20. That's right. Call them right now at 888-446-5360. This invaluable guide will outline the precise steps you need to take immediately to transfer your IRA or 401k into precious metals, all without tax consequences. Call American Alternative Assets at 888-4-GOLD-20 to claim your free gold and silver guide today. Again, 888-446-5360. Individual results may vary. There's no guarantee that past performance will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Yeah. I understand your frustration, Joe, and I know that you appreciate my frustration as well. And I've got a ton of great stuff coming up for you. Ronald Reagan talking about the debt ceiling when he was president. I got the crooked FBI. I've got the mailbag today. And Marines being attacked by Democrats in San Clemente, California. A violent mob of Democrats, about 40 Democrats attacking and violently beating 3 Marines. I have an update for you on that story as well. So that's all coming up. Only 1 hour left. Will we be able to pack all that in? The mailbag. The mailbag is going to be fun today, too.